Yo, Jewish people completely reject the authority of Christian scripture. Besides, on March 23, 1980, a demonstration was held by burning hundreds of copies of the so-called New Testament, or NT, in Jerusalem, supervised by the Jewish organization Yad L'Achim and subsidized by the Israeli Ministry of Religions. Besides my expose of the Bible in previous videos, this is further indication that the Jewish Tanakh, which most Christians call their Old Testament, OT, is not nearly as harmonious with Christian scripture as many are led to believe. Now for the origin of Christian writings. For Christianity's first 350 years, no solidified NT existed. Various individual gospel accounts, letters, and epistles, around 75 different ones existed, slowly circulated amongst various congregations. Any one congregation might be fortunate enough to have a few which included non-canonical writings that were equally read and circulated. Because of expansion and oppression, more visible formal unity became necessary. So, from many circulating texts, church authorities tediously sorted and weeded through everything, decided which booklets, scrolls back then, should or should not be canonical, and decided the order in which all 27 booklets appear. This is the origin of our present New Testament, NT. St. Athanasius first proposed that these 27 letters, no more, no less, should be canonized as Christian scripture, AD 367, and ratified by the councils of Hippo. AD has nothing to do with hippopotamus, it's just a strange name. AD 393, and Carthage, AD 397. Not until then was our present canon solidified. Afterward, disputes still existed. Eventually, enough copies were made for each congregation to have one book, but not yet for individual believers, since the printing press did not emerge for another 900 years, give or take. Considering these facts, it would be inconceivable for everyone to use these writings as an exact blueprint or pattern. However, I lionize this NT Matthew to Revelation. Quoting St. Athanasius, these fountains of salvation satisfy those who thirst with their living words. However, since we are under Christianity's new covenant, and knowing that the designation testament is synonymous with covenant, many conclude that these 27 books comprise the new covenant, Christianity itself in total. Rather, nowhere in these writings designated the New Testament does it call itself the New Testament. The canon, the complete title would be the Canonized Writings of the New Testament Church. That would be accurate. It was simply shortened for convenience, and sometimes even shorter to NT, like I said before. Besides canonized scripture, I advocate most early documents written about Christ and the church. Although some material might be inaccurate, nothing innate within the canonized NT proves it is more accurate or godly than writings deemed so-called apocryphal or so-called pseudepigraphal, unless they are of the Gnostic heresy. That would be the exception. Discounting extra-biblical writings seems to me like circular reasoning. In other words, the canon declares itself accurate, which that would not be reliable. Rather, the canon gains legitimacy from the testimonial of other writings. One gospel account may have a detail, another account may exclude it but have another detail, while yet another has both or neither, while a fourth has the same details, worded differently, demonstrating different minds behind the writings. This would be an insurmountable problem if God were the author. God, being fully mentally aware, would know every detail and would reflect just one mind. However, if the gospel accounts are viewed as multiple eyewitnesses and or dictated accounts, as closing your left eye, right eye, both or neither radically changes your view, every piece therefore would enmesh like a jigsaw puzzle, and they do. Atheist Bill Maher cried, only 2 of the 4 gospel accounts, Matthew and Luke, mention the virgin birth. If such an important concept was true, all four accounts would mention it. However, in Mark and John, Christ clearly proclaims God the Father to be his real father, never Joseph. Therefore, virgin birth is implied. Besides, extra-canonical gospel accounts also document the virgin birth explicitly, such as the Proto-Evangelium of James, the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew, and History of Joseph the Carpenter. There's other ones as well. The Peerless Gospel message is without contradiction. The number of surviving manuscripts, in addition to what I just said, the number of surviving manuscripts from ancient works such as those of Aristotle, Homer's Iliad, Livy's History of Rome, Plato's Republic, and tetralogies, Pliny the Elder's Natural History, Sophocles' tragedies, etc., range from less than 10 to over 1,000. Yet, there are over 25,000 ancient NT manuscripts in multiple languages still in existence, and said manuscripts were written much closer in time to the original events than those of other ancient works. And like I said, besides the multiple canonized writings substantiating one another, dozens of extra-biblical works substantiate Christian canon. Being man-made does not mean inaccurate. Micrometers and lasers are completely man-made, yet extremely accurate. James 3:7 is an example of an inaccuracy, since it claims that all creatures have been tamed, when that is untrue. Think of sharks. However, its accuracy would detract from James's splendid illustration. Other passages have a similar bent, holding your attention with artistic license. Christian scripture teaches morality, not zoology, which morality is fully consistent. The Christian writings stand alone as the greatest written source for living righteously and achieving heaven because of their superb treatise of Christ's teachings. But again, these writings must be understood according to their historical interpretations, not private interpretations. Otherwise, they are not thus saith the Lord, they are thus saith you. Also, your copy of the NT must be accurate. See my videos on modern Bible translations versus traditional Bibles. Besides reading the NT, I listen to it on tape. I also read other noteworthy pieces of literature for knowledge's sake. I ignore bothersome texts and ideas which have unfortunately been associated with my faith and seek wisdom from other wholesome sources. The enigmatic NT itself says, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, ponder these things. Philippians 4:8.